as a coach, I try to tell them in a nice way, but sometimes I just want to grab them, like, wake up. How did you end up like this? Like, how did you become so soft?
And I had this conversation with my dad, but whatever I went through with my dad, he was quite rough. Come from a very rough upbringing himself. He was very rough with me. And I'm like, thank you. Because if you wasn't like that, I would have never developed the strength I had.
As a Muslim, you want to be the man for your family. You don't have to be Mike Tyson. That's not what I'm saying. Like, you don't have to be a fighter. But your wife and your kids, they want to feel like dad is here. Like, if something happens, I know there's a person here who's going to stand up for me.
In a time where health has never been more sacred, longevity is more precious, having strength and courage is valuable. We're finding that the youth are indoors all the time. They're on gadgets, and we've lost that sense of being fit and strong for a purpose. And today we're going to reevaluate and reassess that purpose, inshallah. We have Coach Amin, who is a black belt in Jiu-Jitsu,
Yes.
and he is a coach and someone who is an advocate of staying fit and healthy. So welcome to the show, mashallah.
Thank you, Brother Shaheed. Thank you.
It's a pleasure, it's a pleasure. So
you.
I'll let you take the floor and discuss what you want to discuss, and we'll just flow the conversation from there, inshallah.
Sure. So my name is Amin Touati. I'm a Jiu-Jitsu black belt, martial arts educator, and my main focus is on character development for the youth. And I've been in UAE for 20 years. I would say for the last 10 years, I've been focusing more on character development.
Mashallah, Allah barik.
Try to teach kids more than just the fighting art, confidence, building discipline, teaching them how to set goals, having a mindset of excellence. So that's like it's a way of life.
Yeah, that's very, very important. I mean, when I was young, now I'm a person who, I dabbled in the arts, I done a different range of martial arts. But one of the reasons that my father wanted me to was for discipline, to learn discipline and manners. So one of the things I learned from many of my teachers, and they call them senseis, all right, is that it's about the mind more than the power that you're achieving, right?
True.
So how much of that influenced your character development process with the youth?
I would say the mindset is probably like 90%.
Wow.
Because if you're mentally weak, let's say you will be like a bodybuilder, right? You're super strong, you look big, but mentally, you know what I mean? Like yourself in the mirror and you're like, oh my God.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense, right? And then you have the other part where you might have someone who, he might look very frail, like he might look skinny and not strong, but mentally he's very strong, he's very confident. And that person will be more successful than the other person.
Wow.
Right? So, I mean, you have to struggle. This is one of the main things that kids lack today. There's no struggle. Everything is easy. And here, especially in UAE, service, talaba, everything is like,
delivery, shop, delivery, petrol goes in.
I grew up in Sweden. It wasn't like a poor country. But still, like, you go out, you play, you walk to buy something, you do this. Here it's like, it's completely different, you know? So this is one of the main things I try to teach kids. Like, you have to struggle. Get away from that easy lifestyle, right? And even for adults. Yeah.
It's, what's really interesting about what you mentioned is that when I was a child growing up, right, the struggle was real. I was born and raised in UK, didn't come from a very wealthy family. We struggled a lot financially. But when I wanted to play, I took my ball, I found a wall, and I played with myself.
Yeah.
I climbed a tree and see how many trees I can climb and how quick I can climb it. I set myself targets. And, that really helps a person develop those characteristics of confidence and so on and so forth, right? Being disciplined and so on and so forth. So we see nowadays the children, they're more confined. They're inside. They're on devices. Everything is on a device.
Yeah.
So how can we realign that foundation for both children and adults alike?
To get them more into sports, you mean? Or
just to get into the mindset of struggling, because as you said, it requires struggle. Like, I'll give you another example. When I was doing martial arts, I was doing Shaolin Kung Fu.
Okay.
Part of Shaolin Kung Fu is they really hammer you, man.
Yes, I know.
You have to hit your hands into sand. You have to be hit with a stick. You have to stand on your. It's very difficult. But part of that struggle gives you more resilience, gives you more strength, gives you more insight, gives you more ability to face your wins and losses. So how can we, in this day and age, when we become more soft in mind, soft in character, reignite the flame of being able to struggle?
You have to put yourself in a position where you have to struggle. You know your life, right? If you know that you're used to, you know, drivers, talabat and all that. Okay, I'm not saying that's wrong, right? But you cannot wake up and have that all day, you know, without having any kind of struggle. So, I mean, that I always tell the brothers, you know, start training. It doesn't have to be jiu-jitsu. Of course, I'm very biased. I think jiu-jitsu is the best martial art or sport for any brother. Why? Because following the Prophet, following the Sunnah of Prophet ﷺ, you know, they were doing wrestling. And, you know, you're fully covered. You're not half naked like you see in many other sports. You don't punch to the face. Like, all this thing is halal, you know?
MashaAllah.
So I feel jiu-jitsu is the best one. But let me give you an example. If you look at the top fighters, let's say boxing, or you look at NBA players, all these guys, most of them are from the hood. Like, they come from the right?
Yeah, real talk.
Why is that? Why any boxer? If you take like probably at least 90%.
Mike Tyson, you know.
Yeah, Chris Eubank.
Chris
and,
Eubank.
I just saw a video yesterday about Chris Eubank and his son. And but mashallah, his son is good. He's training. I think he's a world champion as well.
Yeah.
But it was when he was a kid. And he said, I want to be a boxer like you, Dad. And da-da-da-da. He said, no. No? He said, why are you doing it? He said, you don't have what I have. Like, I struggled. It was like pain. You know, I came from I had to like fight. Like he said, you live in like a, you know, and he had a lot of money at that time when he had his kids, you know. So he said, you grew up in a very, you know, in a good area, you know, very like, exactly. And but the son just kept, I have to give respect to his son. He didn't give up. And finally, the dad said, you know what, I'm going to support you. And mashallah, he became a world champion, which shows you that when the father stands behind his son, sky's the limit.
Sky's the limit. Yeah, it's very true.
You know
what's really interesting? Chris Eubank, I met him a number of times. So where my auntie used to live, he lived near him. And she would bump into him, and she knew him from the neighborhood. Yeah. And she told him, you know, this is my, you know, young little boy. He's having trouble at school. Okay. And he used to say the same thing to me, you know, like, you know, we used to fight for this. Yes, but it's a fight of the mind, he used to say to me. Yeah. You know, you can fight in the playground, but it's a fight in the mind is the one that's going to win. And he used to tell me this sort of stuff because, again, I was not from a really good background, and I was looking to fight my way out of it. Do you know what I'm trying to say? So I can understand where, you know, his mindset now, which is that, you know, he went through the struggle and he's produced something fantastic as a result of it, you know. So it's very, very interesting, that interaction.
You have to be hungry. Like, you have to. One of my struggles in Dubai is getting kids to get that hunger. Because, like I said, if you have everything, okay, same. I'm not gonna say I came from a super poor, but we were like low economic class in Sweden, you know. Paycheck to paycheck, like everyone else, you know. But I always had like, you know, you want to have what other kids have, right? Whether it's financially or you see that, you know, their training and all that kind of stuff. And if the father doesn't support the son, it makes a huge difference. Huge difference. So coming back to the kids now, how can you get kids who have everything, right? You have your nanny, you have the driver, talabat, you don't move a finger, you know, you just click on the phone. And how can you get that person to be hungry? It's not easy.
Not easy,
you know. It's you really have to. So what I'm trying now is just first start physically. Okay. Like, really try to push them physically. And then when they break, not break in a bad way, but it's almost like in the army.
It's like the army, yeah.
It's like the army, right?
Yeah.
They push you, and then when you can't handle, this is where the mental part comes in. And you say, listen, you choose. You quit, you go home to mommy, or you stay, you suck it up, and you keep going, right? And most of them, they stay, right? But what I've seen also is when the dad is behind the son, it's like night and day.
Wow.
Because there's a lot of times where all kids, they cry in class, maybe something happens,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know. So if you have the parent, whether father or mother, right? Oh, what happened? Did you get hurt? Okay, just leave the class and da-da-da. You're teaching the kid that when it gets hard, we leave,
Give up, yeah.
right? You give up. But then you have other parents, these old school parents. Sometimes I salute them. Like I go to the dad
I know the old school friends,
and I
bro.
go to,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
said, I salute you. Like
Mashallah.
really, because I remember like a few weeks ago, there was a kid, they were rolling on the floor, and just by accident, one kid hit the other kid's tooth, right? He started bleeding. And he started crying like crazy. And I'm like, oh my God, his parents are going to be so upset. It was no one's fault. It just happened, right?
Happened.
He just tripped,
part
right?
of the process, yeah.
And he said, I'm never coming back and I'm going to quit. And coming back. And the dad was like, you stay. He said, you're not going anywhere.
Yes.
He let him cry. And I told him, I said, look, just for, I felt sorry for him.
Yeah.
I said, just for today, I said, let him go home. He's really upset. And he said, okay. But he said, I'm telling you, you're coming back. You're not quitting. So I was like, sir,
well done, yeah.
And wallahi ladhim, just yesterday, 2 days ago, I went to his dad and I said, you have no idea how your son have changed.
MashaAllah, tabarakallah.
Warrior, mashallah. Like he's pushing. And I'm always thinking back, what if his dad would have been one of those like, no, it's okay. You know, you don't have to do this if you don't want. He would have never come back.
Sahih.
But because the dad, he knew what was right for his son. He said, you need to take it. You need to stay there, suck it up and finish. And now, a few days ago, I went to him. I said, MashaAllah, tabarakallah. I said, your son, he's changed so much.
Allahumma barik.
He's a warrior. And he smiled, he was
he's
so
proud.
happy. He's proud.
Exactly, yeah.
But that's the importance. I don't think people understand how important it is to really like be behind your kids, even son and daughters, both, you know.
This is very fascinating because I really I look into some things in my own life, right? And I say that a lot of the paths that Allah's put me in today, whether it's counseling, whether it's podcasts, whether it's presenting, there's something in my life that's affected me or happened to me that's thrusted me in that position.
Yeah.
And I was saying to my wife the other day that, and I had this conversation with my dad, but whatever I went through with my dad, he was quite rough. Come from a very rough upbringing himself. He was very rough with me. And I'm like, thank you. Because if he wasn't like that, I would have never developed the strength I had.
Yeah.
This level of, like you said, when I fall over, get up. Obviously,
suck it up.
Suck it up. Now, obviously, that doesn't. For the people watching, doesn't mean you don't care about your loved one.
Yeah.
Now we know if you go to the doctors, we have to be stabbed with a needle. Sometimes we have to have our arm amputated to save the rest of the body. This is from mercy, right? So it's from that same mercy that we're trying to encourage our children to be more independent and be strong, and we have more thought processes. So I was looking at this with my wife, and my wife sometimes she's the one. She's like, "Oh, it's okay."
Yes,
I'm like, "No, get up, stand up, suck it up. Let's go again." And I've realized how important it is to have that. Really, someone behind you who really helps you build that character, because we have this internal sense of value, and sometimes that fluctuates based upon our environment, what we believe in ourselves, so on and so forth. And if you have someone behind you, like you said, especially the parents who are pushing and driving you in that regard, it can really help that process along a lot more, inshallah. Yeah.
No, it makes a big difference. I would say even in my place, in my academy, the kids who develop the fastest, right, who succeed the fastest, are the ones who have their dads constantly behind them.
MashaAllah.
And some of the dads, I even convinced them to start training. I said, when you start training, you're gonna impress your son even more, because you're gonna see, wow,
dad's on this thing,
And then they go even further,
MashaAllah. Yeah.
So this bond between father and son, and it's good you said about the women, because you need both, right?
Yes.
The woman's role is to be, protect the kids, and
Exactly.
you cannot be extreme on one side.
Exactly.
Yeah. But I don't know how many times I've tried to talk to parents, and I tell them, listen, whatever you do now, it's gonna have a huge effect once they grow older.
Yeah.
I'll give you a funny story. When I was same like your dad, my dad was very rough. And he grew up in Algeria, during war. It was famine, no food.
Yeah.
He almost died. He had tuberculosis.
Wow.
Then he moved to France. He was homeless. It was like really, really
struggles,
rough.
Yeah.
So he gave that to me in a sense. Like I grew up in Sweden, but Sweden is obviously a lot softer than Algeria, right? So he said, no, I have to go like really. I think he went even more there.
Yeah, more so.
And I had a friend, I remember the Swedish guy, his dad was the complete opposite. He was an old school hippie.
Yeah.
And he was like, it's cool, you know, like you do what you want to do, you
Yeah,
know, like you see many liberals do today, you know,
yeah.
like you do you know.
Yeah.
And I was so jealous. As a kid, like he could tell his dad, like, you know, I'm going away for 2-3 days, you know, so he's like, yeah, you know, you do what right, what feels best
good
for you.
Yeah.
I tried to do the same thing when I went home to my dad, you know, democracy, it didn't work, you know? And I'm ashamed to say it now, but like, I'm not going to say I hated my dad, but I was really upset. I said, why can you know? Because I thought that was...
I can relate to that, yeah.
That was like the perfect dad, you know? He can do whatever he wants. They chose, like, what do you want to have for lunch? I came home and said, you eat whatever I put on the
plate,
table.
Exactly.
Yeah,
speak when you're spoken to, and all that sort of stuff.
But now when I grew up, I see myself and I see that guy, brother, it's night and day.
Yeah.
You know, and now you go back and you kiss your father's hair. You say,
yeah.
Alhamdulillah.
Yeah, me and my dad had this. He had this, like, you know, oh, sorry what I did to you. I was like, Dad, no, it's fine.
Yes.
You know, like,
you don't realize
it because now, you know, and it's empowering for a man in terms of what we're talking about, character developing. Because as you mentioned, that from the son of the Prophet Muhammad is that Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is that we wrestle and we should be strong.
Yes.
You know, now, like, obviously my wife, she's come into my family. She didn't know me before. And obviously what a woman wants is she wants to be protected. She wants to be taken care of, loved, all the other things, right? But one of the things that is like, it really, you know, you can see is empowering is that if anything was to take off, like if anyone's going to be harmed in my family, I'm going to stand up. I'm going to use the strength and character that God gave me and all my experience gave me, and I'm going to defend my family. Yeah, and when she's seen me in that position, you know, as a woman, she feels like, yeah, this is my man. This is my man. Like, women don't really like that kind of, oh, it's okay, baby, I cut my nail. They don't like. They want to know that they're protected and safe. So that's really something that the family as a whole develops, and then the character inside the family is really strong because she feels protected. She now knows that her kids or future kids are going to be protected. He feels empowered and manly and responsible. So it kind of builds a better community. You know what I'm saying? Because the family is the start of the community, sir. Yeah.
I mean, we say it, but I'm not gonna say there's a lot of good brothers out there. I'm not gonna say, but you also see
the opposite.
You see the opposite. And as a coach, I try to tell them in a nice way, but sometimes I just want to grab them, like, wake up. Like, how did you
come to this point?
How did you end up like this? Like, how did you become so soft? You know, it's a wallah. It's a, you know, as a like you said, as a Muslim, you want to be the man for your family. You don't have to be Mike Tyson. That's not what I'm saying. Like, you don't have to be a fighter, but your wife and your kids, they want to feel like Dad is here.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, if something happens, I know there's a person here who's going to stand up for me, right? But to be able to have that, you need to have confidence.
Yes.
And this is where maybe, okay, you grew up on the streets, I grew up on some, you know, but some guys, maybe they didn't necessarily grow up in that kind of environment, you know, like basic middle class, no fights, no nothing. So how do you get that confidence?
Exactly, good question.
If you've never been in that environment, you have to start now, right? You start training martial arts. You test yourself against other men. I'm not saying, again, you don't have to be a professional fighter, but just the fact, you know, stepping on the mat, you know, you're learning the basic moves, and slowly you fight against another person. You see what you can do. And then you're like, okay, this guy is smaller than me. I can handle him. Then next time you go with a similar size, the better you get. You might even go with a guy who's 20, 30 kilo plus. And this is where the confidence comes from. You'd be like, man, I can take this guy. Like, the guy's 30, 40 kilo plus, and I can fight with this guy. When you go home, it's going to show.
Yeah, exactly.
You're going to be the guy who can fight with a guy who's 40 kilo plus.
Yeah.
So this is where the beauty comes from when you train.
Mm.
That's why I get upset when people play paddle and football. I said, there's no benefit, brother.
Yeah.
There's no benefit.
They might argue cardiovascular benefit. But
cardio, but there's no confidence, brother. There's no, you don't get disciplined by playing paddle.
yeah.
You want to do paddle? No problem. You want to do any, but at least do something that's going to make you a strong Muslim, mentally and physically.
You know, that reminds me of the narration that the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings upon him, he said, the stronger Muslim is better than the weaker Muslim.
Yes.
You know, that this is actually from religion, to be strong mentally, physically, everything, you know. Yeah. And it's something you also mentioned that really, you know, profoundly took me back to my, you know, childhood. I was bullied a lot because we lived in an area where there wasn't many black people. And I was like me and my sister and maybe one other was the only black children in the entire school. So they like monkey this and that and that.
Exactly the
yeah,
same.
you know,
exactly
the same, right?
Same, yeah.
So I remember once that, you know, my bullies were on, you know, getting onto me a lot. My grandfather, I spoke to him, and my grandfather, you know, he told me like, don't allow these people to do this again. You know, you don't have to be an aggressive or violent person, but stand your ground. And he gave me some words to the sort. I was very young, I can't remember. I stood my ground. And when I stood my ground and I ended up overpowering these boys, as you mentioned, it gave me a sense of confidence. Like, oh, this is what I can do. I don't have to be the boy in the corner anymore sucking my thumb, which is nothing wrong. We're not saying the one who does. To some degree, there's no wrong in having soft nature. But in terms of that mental and physical strength is very important. And I was like the one who used to hide in the corner because I'm going to be beaten up every day and like that. And when that happened, all of a sudden, I felt confident. I felt more aware of myself. I felt more, you know, I felt more empowered. And that's really, really important, you know. And I think that's what some of the kids right now are facing. And the reason why I mention that story is because I have an incident in my family. You know, I tell my children, I try to grow them up with the same character, like to be strong, to be, you know, you don't have to be a violent person. We're not saying that because you're able to fight, you have to fight. Yeah. Or because you're strong, you have to go and overpower people. No, it's just for the sake of Allah. It's bottom line. And they had an incident where my daughter was attacked by a boy. And I told them before, do not allow anyone to harm your sister. Now, this is not about being like little thugs on the street. Yeah. This is your responsibility is to take care of that girl. You understand me? So they came in after this incident and they were very like happy, charged. I was like, what happened? They're like, yeah, so the boy kicked my, you know, Inaya, my daughter's name, yeah. And what did I do? I come up to my sister, oh, don't kick my sister, you know. And then my other son came here and said, yeah, and I backed him and I, you know. But they were extremely happy and confident. Yeah. And when I was having this dialogue with them, it was like, wow, this is really something that, you know, can help them in many ways in life, because what they were explaining to me is that they were having conversations. They felt like strong enough to have the conversation to say, don't do that again. You don't do this, and push him away and make sure she's safe. And again, it doesn't mean that they're violent, but it means that they're confident enough to stand up when they need to stand up. And this is what's really important.
That's all you need. Again, you don't have to, you know, I think a misconception is that many times when I tell brothers, you know, start training, you know, they look at UFC, they look at all these things. They're you know what I mean? That's the only image they have.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that's not for me. I said, no, it's not. It's not even close to that. I'm not a fighter. People always think like I'm a fighter. I've never been a fighter my whole life. I'm not a street fighter. I'm not a thug. I'm not, you know.
Yeah, I'm just trained. Yeah.
But similar to you, like I think it was me and another black guy in school. Okay, so of course you hear a lot of names. And same thing, you always, my mother was like, yeah, just be nice, be polite, and you learn very quickly. Nice guys finish last. Yes. We know this already. Exactly. You know, being nice always. So it took years, you know, you hear names and back and forth. But finally I said, okay, like it has to stop. Right? And same thing, like once you say no, I actually ended up fighting with the guy, right? But after that, he never said anything. Exactly. Right? Yeah. So it's like, imagine you're in the park, right? You're an adult, you're sitting with your wife, you're sitting with your kids, and you have some guys next to you playing football, shouting, saying loud words. Now, simple thing, do you have the confidence? You're by yourself, right? They're like 6, 7 guys, all big guys. They're saying bad words in front, not necessarily to you, but they, you know, you can hear a lot of bad words. do you have the confidence to stand up and walk to them and like, guys, excuse me,
calm
I'm
down,
sitting here with my
please.
family.
Yeah.
I would appreciate if you. That's a huge thing. You don't have to fight the guy, but that small thing. I mean, it's a huge thing for many, but if you have the confidence, you can easily stand up and be like, you know what, guys, I would appreciate if you could move down a little bit. I'm sitting with my wife and my kids. You know, you're saying a lot of bad words. If you don't have the confidence, you're just gonna sit. And how is that gonna affect your role as a man in front of your wife?
Subhanallah.
In front of your kids?
Subhanallah.
Right?
Very
You hear all those bad words, and they know that they should not hear these bad words, but they look at
and
you.
they're looking to you as
They look at you as a father,
Yeah.
and you're like, yeah, you know this. And the worst thing you could do is move. Like you say, guys, let's get up and move. Now you teach your kids to, you know what, be quiet, be that nice guy. Never, you know, don't stand up for yourself.
How powerful is this in regards to our religion? Because we know that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, when one of us sees an evil, he should change it. You know, with his hands, exactly, with his mouth, so on and so forth. And we learn from this, like communal correction can be fard ayn, like individual responsibility, and it's you know, and it's a communal responsibility. So, say for example, you have some kids messing around in the street, and it's our religious responsibility to stop those children.
Yeah.
And again, it's not about being a bad guy or a thug or a criminal. It's about doing what's right. So we go to them, say, listen, guys, I'm sorry. You're making a little bit of disturbance. Calm down, X, Y, and Z, so on and so forth. But what we see in society today is that people don't have the confidence to speak. People don't have the confidence to say, this is a sin, stop it. They don't have the confidence to speak to these young boys, to fix up, to go to the mosque. And it's creating a really problem in society. So I want to pose another question. Do you think that this lack of chivalry or this manly character is leading to more and more problems in society?
Yeah, definitely.
Simply put, just yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
If you ask anyone, whether here in UAE, back in the UK, like you had a kind of shame in front of your neighbors.
Yeah.
Right? The neighbor could come, guys, what are you doing? You know, oh, be quiet. You just like now I feel like Sweden is chaotic. It's chaotic. It's like it's one of the worst, probably the top, like highest crime rate in Europe by now. You know, shootings and bombings and all that, just because of like, shh, don't talk, don't do anything. So if you get away with this, no one talks. You step up the limit again. Nobody talks, and now
you're
gonna
keep
you know. So there's no. It went so far. One guy actually got killed in Sweden. Right? He wanted to do the right thing, right? But he had gone so far. So you cannot stop it by yourself now. It needs to be like a huge group that, you know. Yeah. There were some gang members who said something, I don't know, they were like standing up outside a place, and he just went with his son, and I think they said some bad words or something, and same thing, he went up to them, and one guy, he just shot him in front of his son, which I have to point out, you need to know when to talk.
Yes.
And when not to talk.
And when to stay and when to walk.
You know, if you're with your kids.
And this goes back to the mind, right? Yeah.
Back to the mindset. As a warrior, you know, when is the... Even back in the time of Prophet ﷺ, they knew when to engage.
Yes.
And when to like, you know what? It's not the right time.
Exactly.
We step backwards.
Yeah.
So same thing. But again, it comes with confidence. It comes with a strong mental mindset, right? To know, okay, is this the good time to do it? No. Right? So even if you're with your family and you suspect these guys are very dangerous, right? They might be having knives or something. You tell the kids, like, you know what? These guys, they might have weapons or something.
Exactly.
It's better we leave.
What does that do for the child? It doesn't show that you're weak in the sight of this.
No, but that you're thinking.
You're thinking smartly, and it may encourage them to think smartly in the future. This is very, very important. And this is what I love about martial arts, you know. A lot of people ask me in my life, why am I so fanatic about, or not fanatic, but why do I love martial arts so much? It's because the mindset in connection to what your body can do.
Yeah, true.
I think the connection is very fascinating. What you can do with your mind and how you can overcome so many different obstacles and how it benefits the people in the future. But I want to ask another question now, kind of digressing away from the character. What about this widespread disease of laziness, which is that, you know, And I hold myself to account. I have to be honest. I went, you know, I'm definitely feeling a little bit lazy. That's why I'm wearing the shirt. I'm tucking it all in. But you know, you go to the doctors and they say to you, look, your cholesterol's high, this and that, because you're not exercising enough. And it's become widespread. We were very lazy. We moved from the car to the, we don't walk very much anymore. We're not outdoorsy people anymore. You know, what's the perspective of you as a coach, as someone who's trying to program the minds in terms of laziness? What's your viewpoint on it?
You know the solution, right? If you say like, okay, I have this, I can be lazy sometimes, and I think most people, they know the solution already. I don't have to tell them. My job is just to be that guy who reminds them. I'm not saying anything new. They know they have to work out. They know they have to, but again, it comes back to be mentally strong, right? You wake up, I don't know how many times, like I've now done jiu-jitsu for 21 years. Just yesterday, I woke up and I said, I don't want to do this. Like, not quit. I'm not saying quitting, but going to training, my body was aching. I don't sleep. You take the kids to school and, you know, all these excuses that you can give yourself, right? You have to make a choice. You're going to be the guy who just accepts sitting down, or you're going to take charge of your life and be like, you know what? It's like jihad al-nafs. It's truly jihad. You have to fight yourself. You have to fight your nafs. Right? Okay, probably about the body's in pain and you're tired, but you still go and do it. If you're tired, you're not going to go to the masjid. You don't do salat. Right? You're sick, you still go, unless you're super sick, but like you catch a flu or something, you still go to the masjid. You travel, you go to the masjid. So why is it that I'm not comparing salat with it, but I'm just saying, when you put something in your mind, you put in your mind that salat, there's no compromise. Wherever I go, whatever state I'm in, I'm doing my salat, right? So you can do a little smaller amount for your mental fitness. Same thing. It doesn't matter. I'm tired. I work a lot, but I need to do at least try to get like two classes per week. Take care of my body, focus on my mental strength, my physical strength. It's truly like you have to fight your nafs.
Yeah.
And it's not easy, especially if you start in an older age. If you've been lazy from scratch, you didn't have that dad who pushed you, right? You had an easy life, and now you're like 35, 40.
And you have to restart now, and you have to reprogram.
It's very tough. Very tough.
What are some methods that can help those who are starting from scratch to get through this tough, transition?
Yeah.
And I think I remember once for me, I don't know if I want to ask your opinion as well, inshallah, but my teacher would say to me, and he's just a Quran teacher, Islamic studies teacher, he said, when you do something that is difficult, like you're memorizing a page, you're memorizing half a page, it's mentally draining, reward yourself with something afterwards. You're training your brain to, do that thing and then get the reward afterwards. So you're seeking the reward from the action itself. Yeah, so it's like a trick, right? Anything or anything that you're aware of that you can help us with?
You're asking the wrong person. I don't believe in reward. Like I'm
no
like,
rewards, yeah.
Just do it.
Just do it.
Don't talk,
Yeah.
But yes, if as a beginner, right? I mean, you get yourself an ice cream, go get something. I agree with that. Yes, when you start, if that's the way you want to start, then you go and train. Maybe it's a little bit hard. The workout might be hard. Then you reward yourself with something afterwards, right? But you have to be careful not to reward yourself all the time. It's like kids. Do your homework.
Yes.
Do your homework and I'll give you a cookie.
Yeah, right? Yeah. That's the...
But after some time, you go like, no, you're supposed to do the homework. I'm not have to give you a cookie all the time. So even with adults, like, okay, maybe in the beginning, just to get you started. But then again, you have to learn how to struggle. If you always get a cookie after the struggle, you're not struggling.
You're right.
You know what I mean?
Very true. That's very true.
Yeah, I'm a little bit old school when it comes to that. I believe in rewards. Like if you achieve something, for example, let's say you train.
Okay.
You got a new belt.
Yeah.
Or you achieved let's say you've been training for 6 months, right? And there's one guy, you never be able to beat him. right?
And that day,
And after 6 months, you beat, you're like, yes,
yeah. There's a reward there.
get a reward, you know?
Okay, makes sense.
Something like that, but not every single class you have to reward yourself, because then you're not really, you're not struggling anymore. You're working for the cookie. You're not working for the,
Exactly,
you're not working for the actual benefit of the martial arts. You know?
That's very interesting, and that reminds me of a brother actually that said this to me once. He I was telling him about this, and this is again, people have different perspectives on life, right? And he was like, I don't reward my kids for anything like that. You know? Yeah. He was like,
that's the guy's absolute.
Yeah. You're supposed to do the dishes. Yeah. You're supposed to tidy up. You're supposed to make your bed. What am I rewarding you for? Yes, true. And you know what? At that time, I've got both of those different opinions. I kind of realized that, that's has a high value. Like you're chasing something that is not, correct. You know, because realistically, like you said, you're chasing the cookie. You're not chasing the thing that you're the benefit you're trying to gain from it. Very interesting. Yeah. It's very interesting. So how much do you think that human psychology enters into things like jiu-jitsu or martial arts or so on and so forth? Because one of the martial arts I did, which is, like I said, the Shaolin Kung Fu, it's a lot about, I didn't do it. I wanted to do it. My dad didn't let me. Alhamdulillah, I'm glad he didn't. But I wanted to go to the Tibet and go to the monastery there. Yeah, I wanted to go in, you know. I was fully involved in it. But yeah, you have to meditate and you have to be one with the mind and all this chi and the flow and all that nonsense, which is all shirk and rubbish. But how much of the human psychology you think is incorporated in learning a martial art, in learning how to gain strength in your body?
Any martial arts, just like you say, if you look at the monks, yes, okay, there might be some shirk, you know, but still, there's a lot of good things we can take from that, right? These monks who dedicate themselves, they're not with any females, they don't drink, they don't eat anything, you know?
All excessive eating and,
that's not even martial arts. That's only about the mental toughness,
subhanallah,
right? Learning how to suffer, learning how to, stand in the cold and, do all these exercises. So it's not even about the punching and the kicking. Right, it's about making your body tougher, right, and the mind tougher. But I think most martial arts, I mean, even boxing, taekwondo, kickboxing, you have to have a certain kind of toughness to continue. If you quit, right, and especially if it's just one, right, martial arts, if you do jiu-jitsu or judo, is 1 against 1. If you play football, you can hide among the other 11.
Kick it every now and again.
You just run around. But now it's 1-on-1.
Now you really
hide.
shine.
And we have a saying in jiu-jitsu: you cannot hide who you are on the mat.
Wow.
Whatever personality, if you're a bully, and I've seen this so many times, you're a bully, but you're hiding it. But your true nifs is a bully is gonna come out.
Wow.
If you're a guy who plays really tough, but inside you're that scared person we spoke about in the beginning, is going to come out. You cannot hide it because you're going to be in positions which are very difficult, right? Let's say someone is pinning you down, they're putting their chest on your face, it's hard to breathe, maybe they start choking you and all that kind of stuff. Whatever is inside is going to come out.
Subhanallah.
You know what I mean? If you're that sore loser, right? The person beat, you tap. You can either stand up, shake his hand, like, oh, thank you, brother. That was nice. Let's do it again.
Strange stuff, yeah.
Or sometimes, rare times, but some you have people standing up, screaming, saying bad words, and I have to go like, whoa. Control yourself. Like you lost, suck it up. This is part of the game, you know? So it brings out the person, right? And then me as a coach, I have to mold it, right? So if he's that bully, I need to calm him down, right? If he's that scared person, I have to, build his confidence and be like, look, you can do this, don't let the other guy bully you. Keep going. Sometimes they want to quit. They want to tap. I said, don't do it. I said, I'm standing just next to you. You're not going to get hurt. I'm not going to let the guy hurt you. But don't quit. And they keep going. And then when they stand up, because he was about to stop. But after you speak with him and he can go for another like 2-3 minutes and the round is finished and he stand up and he didn't lose, like he stands up with his head
high and shoulders,
So it's drilling, just like the army. They push you. Why? Because they know they have to push you to the limit. When you break down, the general or the sergeant is going to be there to pick you up and like, no, this is the time to man up, keep training, keep doing, and they just keep pushing you. And that's how you become a good soldier, and that's how you become a good martial artist as well.
You know what's really profound about what you said? As you're talking, I'm thinking about different things, many different things. I'm thinking about gold. You know, you have to refine it. You have to, you know, burn the impurities out. You know, then it becomes valuable. Diamonds, they have to go under extreme pressure underground, and I'm thinking about one of the, you know, they say one of the greatest swords ever, you know, made was the katana,
The sword, the Japanese sword.
The Japanese sword. That has to go under a lot of intense, you know, heat, folding, bending, hitting, bashing, in order to
become what
it is. And I'm thinking to myself, like, all of the people I've ever listened to in terms of YouTube videos or audio books in terms of success, they say you have to learn how to fail before you ever can succeed.
True.
You have to learn that life is about failing sometimes, getting up and then trying a different way. And I saw you know, Elon Musk, he sent off that rocket. It broke. He looked at the pieces, sent it off, broke, looked at the pieces. He didn't stop. He didn't, you know, he carried on until he was successful. You know, and you look at the guy who invented the light bulb, or, you know, took the idea of the light bulb and developed it further. He said that, you know, on the 900 or 1000, he said something like, I only learnt 1100 ways how not to do it, and on the other, you heard this?
I heard that before.
Yeah. So he looked at it from a different perspective. I was only learning what I did wrong, so I could do it right. You know, and how much of this can we take from Islamic practices to encourage those who are listening to actually adopt in their life? Because yes, obviously there is an element of the physical, the mind. How much of this comes from Islam?
I would say a large chunk, if you really go deep in seeing all this. You can read about hadith, you can read about the life of the Prophet ﷺ, all these things like we spoke about now. They were doing wrestling, right? They were doing, I think even when the Prophet ﷺ was a kid, they sent him out in the desert.
That's right, yes.
Even at that time.
Yeah.
We always say, okay, the last generation, like we talk about our dads. Yeah, they were so much tougher back in the days.
Yeah.
Our dads talk about their dad. Yeah, they were so much tougher. So imagine the Prophet ﷺ, even at that time, for us, they were like the men of the, you know, the ultimate. And even those guys, they sent him out because they wanted to make him tough.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not something we just came out with like 20 years ago, 30 years ago. Right? That's why I think if you look at the life of Prophet ﷺ, you would see all these steps that we can do today, right? Harden yourself, you know, like he was going meditating sometimes. All these things is like making you mentally stronger, right? And I mean, there's so many things we can take from Islam. There's so many things, but if you really want to practice martial arts, right? If you really want to practice martial arts, the best way is to start, right? Today, not next week, not next year. People always talk about
procrastination. I'm gonna do it.
That's also one thing, procrastination, right? Over and over again. There's some basic stuff that we can take from the deen that says like, okay, you take care of your health, your body has rights over you, all these small things. But if you want it, it's there.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
A lot of times people know these things already. That's why I said I'm not saying something new. I'm just reminding people. But people don't, I don't know, like
That's why I try to kind of encourage the discussion of where it comes from in the deen. Because some people may argue, oh, you know, I'm just worshipping Allah. You know, you have this sense of, you have this, you know, students of knowledge. They, you know, they have a pen and they put their hat on and they go to the classes, and it's excellent. But those students of knowledge may be also obese and they may not be taking care of their weight and so on and so forth. And I always say this, like, Islam is not just what you have as information. Knowledge is your relationship with Allah and the people getting better. And the very first one is yourself. You should be better in every aspect of the word better.
Yeah.
And your connection with Allah should be better. And your connection with the people should be better. And that's knowledge. As for information, I was saying this last night to my wife. You can take a test, right? You know, we have this trend nowadays where it depends on how much certified you are, right? You can take a test, Islamic studies test, and you can give it to a non-Muslim. They can study it, they can pass it, but it doesn't make them necessarily a good righteous believer. True. What makes a righteous believer is first who they're doing this action for. So like you're saying, we need to develop character. We need to stop being lazy. We need to train more. The men need to be stronger. Who are we doing it for? Allah. And that should be the motivation to make you consistent in that action. And when you know this is what Allah wants from you, then you kind of, the excuses start to fall off. Now you know it's down to your own nafs. That makes sense. Yeah. Because as you mentioned, the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessing be upon him, he was sent to the desert from the city to grow up with more strength, more awareness, more social awareness. We see the Sahaba, the companions, you know, Umar bin al-Khattab, radiallahu anhu. When the message of Islam became public is when Umar, he came, he was strong. He was the strength, it was Umar, then the other companions that came after, but it really developed strength when he accepted Islam. Because why? Of his strong nature. And he came out in the community and he mentioned, I'm a Muslim and we're going to be calling the people to Islam. You know, this is what it's going to be now. And no one could turn around and say, because why? Umar had strength mentally, physically. Yes. Yeah, exactly. So when people listening may be like, okay, yeah, you're right. No, I might do it for health reasons. But no, this is part of our religion. And if you look at the narration where the Prophet Muhammad, he said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there'll come a time where the people will set on you like diners set on a dish. And they'll devour you. And the companions were like, O Messenger of Allah, is it because our numbers are less? He said, no, but you'll be like the froth in the ocean. Meaning there's no weight. Yes. Religiously, spiritually, physically, there's no weight to you. You're too weak. Does that make sense? So we can see what's going to save our nation is also having this strength as well. So what I'm trying to share from this as a benefit is that what we're talking about, martial arts and physical strength and mental strength, is actually a stepping stone and saving the entire ummah.
Yeah, true.
You know, because we become strong in our values. We become strong in physical sense. We become strong mentally. How many people leave their religion because they're scared of what the other person says?
Yeah, true. If you're physically weak, and again, we're not judging by physical strength, but it plays a big role, right? If you're physically weak, that also can translate, you become mentally weak. You know what I mean? Like you just feel like, you know? And again, like you said, maybe sometimes people feel like, okay, I have knowledge and that's it. You know, they hide behind the pen. And we respect those brothers, mashallah. We need those brothers. But you need the physical side as well, right? I think it's very important for Muslims to have. You should look the part. You know, I become very sad sometimes. I see brothers, you know, they come with the thobe and everything, and you see super skinny arms, super skinny legs, and a huge belly. And the Prophet ﷺ even warned about this, when he said, when I think he said to the, what did he say? It was better for you. I forgot the hadith, you know, but I think he warned one of the Sahabas because he had like a pup. But so I get sad when I see this. Like I want the brothers. You should have the looks. Again, not bodybuilder looks, but you should just have that standing tall. You know what I mean? Be able to walk. Like people see, like, man, mashallah. You know, there's a lot of times you see guys. They're not like big and strong, but the way they walk, the way they talk. You know, you respect that brother. You know what I mean? Exactly. But mashallah, that guy's like, I don't know what he does, but he just he gives me the impression of like he's a guy you shouldn't mess with, you know? Exactly.
And when you have this with Tawheed, this is powerful. Because, you know, there's a story, it reminds me of one of the Salaf. He, this king, a tyrant king, captured some Muslims and he captured non-Muslims.
Okay.
And this guy, this scholar, this alim, he went to the king, the people of the king. He said, I've come to take all of the people you've captured back. And the students, it's narrated that the students are pulling up their thobes ready, like something's going to happen. And the king was amazed. He was like, called this person, who are you? Like, what you're giving me orders? And he said, yeah, you're going to give them now. directly, all. And he ended up, long story short, is a story is narrated in the athar of the scholars when you look at their biographies. But the king gave all of the captive, the people who are captured, you know, because of the strength this individual had. And what is mentioned in the story when our teachers tell us is that the physical strength, but not only that, the combined with tawheed. When you have this sense of, I know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and I'm doing it for Allah, and the strength I have in my body and my mind develops a complete level of strength.
Complete package.
Yeah, complete package. Then I'm able to move mountains. And the reason why I'm really highlighting this is because in nowadays, we see people protesting, marching, screaming, and you've heard this before, I'm sure. You can bench press 100 kg, but you can't bench press your sheet of Fajr. You heard this?
Yes,
Yeah. So it's a full package. It's not just being strong physically, strong mentally, and spiritually. And when you have those three things,
it comes back to the confidence. If you have confidence, it shows. I'm mashallah 195.
mashallah,
Right? I'm almost 2 meters tall. I weigh like 110 kgs. But I know I had coaches that literally half my size. He might weigh like 60 kilos, 65 kilo. But I have so much respect for them only because of the way he behaves. Like, you know what I mean? His posture when he talks, I'm like, this guy is so full of, like, I want to be like this. And I'm twice his size. Like, I'm twice his size.
Yeah.
You know, like I have to look, literally, like I talk to him, but still when I see the guy happen, I'm like, mashallah. I said, that's a man. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he talks like a man, he walks like a man. And again, we're not talking about these bodybuilders. It's just about the way he, you know, promotes himself, you know, the way he sits, the way he walks and talk with brothers and, you know. So I think this confidence thing is, but you will not get the confidence if you don't struggle. You see, it's like a circle now. We can talk about this over and over and over again.
But they come back to the same foundation.
It comes back to the same foundation. If you don't put yourself, if you don't have that struggle in your life, right? Sometimes I even think about not getting a new car. I have an old car, right? And I'm going back about, should I get a new car? And I always think about my mentor, the brother Mumtaz that I spoke about, all right? He had a huge impact on my life, right? Ex-ranger, soldier, then all the stuff, all the martial arts. And he's as Spartan as it goes. Mashallah. Like, he don't want anything from the journey. He was driving a Toyota Corolla from, 1996.
Mashallah.
Like, he didn't need, and he was pure martial art, like true warrior.
Mashallah.
He didn't have money, right? He had no status. I'm saying in the way, like, he was no big shot lawyer. He was not like, he was the average man, but wallahi al-azim, I saw him talking to people. I'm talking about the elite of the elite, and they all spoke with him with respect.
Subhanallah.
Because of the way he spoke, the way he carried himself. He still carries himself, he's still alive, you know. So he had a huge impact on me. I'm like, wow. Like a simple man like this, he have no money, no status, no nothing. And still, when people talk with him, wallahi, they're like, yes, okay, yeah, you know.
Yeah.
Like, they you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
you know, it's like,
yeah. You know, that's very profound. You know, that I've seen this myself in life. You know, when you see certain people that, I wouldn't say they demand respect. It's just naturally it comes because of how they carry themselves. And one of them is my grandfather, rahimahullah. He was a person when he didn't need to talk. I'll be honest. You know, like, you know, those type of those parents where he look at you and you're like, okay, granddad, I know, I'm gonna behave myself now. You know, but he had a certain charisma, and it was again that level of confidence I saw in him when I growing up. Really is inspiring. You know, wherever he went, people were, you know, had that rapport with him. And that came down again to, he knew himself. He knew what he was able with, you know, what he was capable with. He knew that when to be soft and when to be firm and when to be, you know, I wouldn't say aggressive, but when to be tough, you know. And he knew all those things very well, you know. And I remember some incidents when I was growing up where he would need to say some couple of words to people who have violated, you know, and the way he would talk, you know, soft and gently, like, you know, boy, you know, like, this is not acceptable, you know, and that shakes, the whole room shakes, you know? And that, again, you can only get like that when you have confidence. And then when you find bullies, you know, they're always shouting and screaming and want to be heard. But you find that people are confident. They don't need to shout and scream. They'll say to you,
True.
this is what it is, and this is what we're going to do, and this is what we should do. And the people, generally speaking, will take it on board because why? They know that this individual is sure.
Speaks with confidence.
And speaks with confidence. Yeah. So I think we've kind of made a very good foundation, and even built on that foundation of what it entails and what we're trying to showcase for the audience. What are some practical steps now? Give some people some takeaways that they can build confidence, build strength, build this understanding that it all comes back to Allah. What are some practical steps we can take away with us?
I would say start looking at your life first, what you do on a daily basis, right? If you know that you don't have enough struggle. And when I say struggle, I'm not talking about the stress of taking kids to school, and that's not struggle. This is like work, you know? But I think every brother and sisters, you know what's going to make you lazy, right? Maybe you come home, you watch that Netflix movie, you sit on 1 hour on Instagram. You know that's not good for you. You know it's not going to bring you closer to Allah. Right? It's very simple. Again, I'm just reminding people. People they know this already, right? But there's a lot of things today that takes, for kids and adults, right? You got the phones, you got the iPads. People come home, they watch TV, they do, and it's hour after hour after hour after hour, and then your life you're gonna wake up. You're 45, you're 50, you're 55, you're out of shape, right? I mean, again, I would say start jiu-jitsu. But you don't have to. Any martial art is good. Any martial art is good.
So first step
is to get you out from your comfort zone.
Okay.
That's number one.
Okay.
Forget about jiu-jitsu. You should not be comfortable all the time. It's not good for the heart, brother.
Yeah.
I don't know if there was one of the ulama who said, one of the older imams who said, you should not even eat meat every day. Something like that. Like he said, like you should. It makes you too comfortable.
The Prophet Muhammad, he said to us, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in not word for word, but كما قال the nearest meaning, he mentioned the men should walk barefoot sometimes. Walk with their feet. He also mentioned that don't overgroom. Don't groom yourself too much all the time. Let it,
be rough.
Be a little bit rough. Yeah. And this is again encouraging the same methodology, which is that go for a little bit of out of your comfort zone, man. Shake it up a little bit. This is very important as a first step.
It's like a rat race, You wake up, you have your thing, take the kids to school, go to work. After work, okay, you're tired. This is where it comes, right? You're tired after work. You have a choice. You're going to go home and just chill, right? Or you just push yourself and you do something, right? But, being comfortable is not good.
Okay.
If you go on vacation, that's something else. But on a daily basis, you should not be comfortable. I'm saying everything is dangerous for the nafs, brother. Wallah, as a Muslim, it's almost like you're putting your iman in danger like this.
SubhanAllah.
When it's constantly comfortable, like everything is like, easy, and you don't want to struggle. You don't want to, It's. It
reminds me of a narration that the Prophet he mentioned, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the dunya is a prison for the believer.
Yes.
Are you comfortable in prison?
No.
No, who's got their feet up chilling?
There's no Taliban in prison.
There's no driver in prison. Exactly. So we're saying, okay, first step, get out of your comfort zone, whatever that comfort zone may be, and start small, right? So for example, it might be do 1-2 push-ups a day, go for a little brisk walk, start a martial art, whatever it might be, but get out of your comfort zone. Okay.
I think it's good to be with the community as well.
Okay.
If you're by yourself, just like with your iman, if you're constantly by yourself, if you're not along with brothers, it's easy for the iman to drop, right? So if you put yourself in a community with other like-minded brothers who wants to do exactly what you do, when you start getting weak, I'm going to push you. I say, brother, man, come on, man. Like you've been home for 3-4 days. Let's do it, right? You do the same for me. That's also very important because if you're by yourself, you might be good for like a week or two. And, we all have our time limit. But sooner or later, you're going to start having wiswas, and like I just said yesterday, right? Oh, I don't want to do it. But if you're around other brothers who all want to push themselves, they all want to be their best, there's nothing better than that, right? So Number one, get out of your comfort zone. Try to find other like-minded brothers. You can be on the same level. You just promise yourself, look, let's do this together. You and me, right? 1, 2, 3 brothers. Let's do this together.
Yeah.
If I quit, you pull me back. And you promise and you have to tell yourself that you're gonna have, it's gonna be things coming in your way, right? It's gonna be some excuses coming up, like, oh, I have this, I have that, I have. So you have to put that in your mind already, right? It's gonna come up. This is where you have to be like, no, I promise myself, I promise the brothers, and we're gonna stick to this. And it's very simple. Well, I mean, to do something once or twice a week, I'm talking about like 2 hours per week. 2 hours. You don't have to do more than that, right?
Yeah.
And again, you meet the brothers. As men, you know, you have to get away a little bit. If you're in the house all the time, it's not for us.
Yeah, it's not.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's not for us.
Yeah.
And that's another sad thing that I see. Brothers are staying home too much. For whatever reason. It's not my business what they do, but I'm just saying they're staying home too much. You have to go out and see the brothers here. Like you have to push yourself. Just like the Sahabas, you know, they were pushing. If one start moving down a little bit, all of them like pull him back. So we should do the same, brother. You know, if I see your iman is going down, I advise you. You do the same for me. But if I see you're getting physically weaker as a brother, I should be like, hey man, brother, I think it's time to get back. You know, like you've been sitting home for too much, and you know, like, and so we're helping each other this way. I'll say the last thing is you cannot have the mindset of quitting.
Throw it out.
For the rest of your life. This is where people quit. When they say, like, oh, but how long do I have to train? Okay, how long do you want to stay in shape?
Yeah.
It's not like
it's
6
like they're
months.
setting themselves up to fail straight
They're
away.
already asking, how much do I have to train? Like, that's not a question. Like, okay, you're just going to get fit for 6 months and then stop? So start small, right? If I tell you, okay, you're going to train the rest of your life, 1 hour per week, 2 hours, then you're like, yeah, okay, I can do that. But if I tell you train every day, morning and night, and that's something people have to be careful of as well, not to go overboard. Many times they go from, it's like that guy who never made salah, then in 1 week, he just wants to go like, you know that most of the time, 99% of the time, they fall back. It's hard to keep that, right? You want to start with something small and build it up. So, yeah, that's those three, you know, get out of your comfort zone, find other brothers who think like you, who wants to support you. They all have the same goal. And number 3, quitting is not an option. You do this for life, like you to increase your health, to be mentally strong. It's not a 6-month thing. It's not a 1-year thing.
You could take your whole entire life.
And if you do it for Allah, first of most. Second of all, after Allah, don't even do it for yourself. Do it for your kids. Because when you do it for yourself, you can also start giving yourself excuses, right? I'm tired. But when you do it for your kids, it's like you have to do it. Because if you show your kids that you quit, how can you tell your kids not to quit? You know what I mean? Like if your kids want to quit in the future and you already done it, what right do you have
to come and say, why are you quitting? No,
why
you're a quitter.
Why are you quitting? Yeah. But if they see their father, like, you know, mashallah, my father's like 55. Yeah. He's still doing it, right? And he's not a high level, but I can see it twice a week. He's constantly doing it. He's getting fit. He's getting strong. He's getting... Kids do what we do, not what we say.
Exactly. You know? That's very, very important. You know, I try to say to my family, there's no such thing as can't do. I don't want to hear these words, can't. It's hard. Just don't say them, because you've already mentally prepared yourself to fail. Just, I can, I'll try, I will. Yeah. Simple, yeah? And consistency is key. Consistency is key. Now, you know, the best of us have fallen off, so that's why I bang my head, because I've lost a little bit of consistency myself.
You're not the only one.
Yeah,
but I brothers get busy with life, right? This is my job, obviously, but even before I did this as for full time, I was still training, right? I was still training. But if you see it as ibadah, I'm doing this for Allah. I want to be a stronger Muslim, right? And after Allah, I'm doing it for my children. I want to show them that I'm a strong father. I want to show my wife that I'm doing this for her. Every woman wants to see their man like a little, you know what I mean?
Like, they say like women like bad boys, right? Because they know he can, so
you can be like a halal bad boy, you know what I mean?
Sorry.
That's a trademark that.
It's trademark, halal bad boy.
Halal bad boy, you know? Every woman wants that bad boy.
MashaAllah. Yeah.
Even the sisters, right? They want that guy like, you know.
Yeah, mashallah. True.
So try to be that halal bad boy.
MashaAllah.
You know, that should be your goal.
MashaAllah. Jazakallah khair. It's been,
Well,
been a beautiful conversation. We're
Barakallah
going to
fiik.
trade that trademark that.
Trademark,
Halal bad boy.
halal
Yeah?
bad boy.
MashaAllah.
Mashallah.
Allah barik.
Jazakallah khair for having me.
No,
brother.
thank you. It's been a pleasure and an
Barakallah
honor. So there you have it, viewers at home. It starts with mind, it goes on to the physical, and it enters into your family and spills into the community. And we're saying this is a solution to many problems we have today. Many difficulties we face as an ummah, many difficulties we face internally and externally can be resolved by developing a strong character and strength and ability. So it's upon you now. Are you going to be lazy or are you going to take action? Till next time, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.